the runway capacity analyzer, the last module of the day. Okay, so this module is slightly different than the ones that we've been looking at before, because the modules that we saw before, as you can see, you were clearly able to see a replay of the aircraft trajectory, or you could see a replay of the vehicle trajectory. But this module, the runway capacity analyzer, is a discrete event simulation. Okay, so it means that it assumes that an arrival or a departure at a runway is just a discrete event that takes so many seconds of runway occupancy time. Okay, so let's move on and try to look it into more detail. Okay, with it you can assess the impact of your operational rules or infrastructure assets on runway capacity. What this module gives you is an estimate of runway throughput and service delay, and it allows you to use different runway capacity definitions. So let's explain that in more detail. Okay, so this tool provides you estimates of throughput and service delay by assuming that the aircraft needs so many seconds on the runway. Okay, and also at the same time trying to respect the separation between arrivals and the separation needed, for example, if you want to have one departure in between arrivals on your runway. So by having a detailed table of aircraft performance data, which contains aircraft acceleration data and aircraft landing speeds, aircraft touchdown speeds, and aircraft takeoff speeds, then AirTOP essentially makes the same calculations that it would do to simulate the path of the aircraft. It does those same calculations, but to estimate how much runway time is needed for this aircraft, and how much time is needed to maintain separation with the aircraft behind or the aircraft in front. So that means that at the end of this runway capacity analysis, you don't have a playback to look at. Okay, you don't have those nice playbacks that we just saw, but you have accurate runway occupancy times, because it was calculating, making use of the same aircraft performance models for those playbacks. In return, what you get is speed. You get these results very quickly. And if you have worked with runway capacity assessments, you know that in this type of assessments, statistical significance is very important. Okay? If you make one simulation run and you have your playback, then that's all you have. You have one playback of one traffic and one situation. With the runway capacity analyzer, you can have a Monte Carlo analysis very fast. You can tell AirTOP to make 10, 20, 30, or 100 runs and get more data points to analyze your runway capacity. So that's why, in the sake of speed, we have created also this module to give you statistical significance of your runway capacity for your runway capacity studies. Okay. The next element that I want to discuss, it allows to use different runway capacity definitions. Okay, so some airports might assume that runway capacity is the maximum number of aircraft that you can handle in 1 hour at constant demand. Okay, that's one capacity definition. But another definition of capacity is how many aircraft an hour can you handle while also maintaining a minimum service level or a maximum delay. Okay, if you don't want to have a delay more than so many minutes, how many aircraft can you handle in 1 hour? So those are two definitions of capacity that are used in the industry, and this module supports both of them. So you don't have to make any compromises. You can use whichever one you want at any time. Okay. Features of this module is that it provides you an estimate of hourly capacity, It also supports traffic schedules that can be user defined or generated by the tool itself. So if you have a design day flight schedule, so you can import that into AirTop and make your capacity assessments based on that schedule. Or if you don't have that schedule and you want AirTop to generate the traffic itself, then that's also possible by telling airport what's the percentage of heavy aircraft, what's the percentage of medium aircraft or small aircraft, and also by telling aircraft how many, what's the percentage of a particular aircraft type. So you can start building your own traffic fleet within the tool if you don't have a design date flight schedule. So both options are possible. The tool also supports cross runway systems. Okay, so that's not a limitation there. So if you have a crossed runways, then you can also estimate runway capacity for that system. And if needed, if important, so you can also include estimations of taxi time. Okay, so when could that also be important? So sometimes when you have some backtracking in your runways, so that might also come in handy. So you can also support, AirTop also supports those situations. Okay, and this module is connected with the airside aircraft module, with the core module that we mentioned before. Okay, so let me briefly explain to you how that works. I know that that's sometimes a lot of information of what the module can do, but let's have a look into the actual module. Let's see how the module looks like and how you can work with it. Okay, so this is the runway capacity analyzer. As you can see here, I have several inputs that I can provide. So first of all, here, what I'm in the center, what I'm explaining, what I'm showing you here is that I can specify here how many runs I want to perform. In this case, I'm telling AirTop that I want to run this analysis 10 times. Okay, so it will be 10 randomized runs of generated traffic. It means that I'm not going to provide my own traffic schedule. I want AirTop to calculate the traffic schedule for me. And here on the right side, I provide details of my fleet mix. I can tell AirTop that I want to use two wake turbulence categories, which are heavy and medium. And I specify that 20% of my traffic is heavy and 80% of my traffic is medium. And can also specify the relationship between departures and arrivals. But in this case, I decided to do the same number of departures and the same number of arrivals. And I can also specify an aircraft type list. So that's very useful because within for example, the medium wake turbulence category, I can add aircraft types and tell, okay, 3% of those should be an A320, 2% should be this aircraft type, and a Boeing 735 should be 11% of those. So you can start building up your traffic mix as you want if you don't have a design date flight schedule. I can also assign down here, I can also assign tell AirTop from my runway system which runways do I want to include in the study. So if you have several runways in your airport, you can, if you want to make a mixed mode operation, if you want to analyze the runway capacity in mixed mode, you could add here, or sorry, in segregated mode, you could add several runways here to the list. But in this case, I can just leave it as only one. I can add also the runway entries, how many runway entries I want to consider in this analysis. You can have multiple runway entries, but you can decide to assume what happens if I only use one or if I use both. That's all up to you. You can do the same thing with runway exits and crossings. And also if you want to add some estimations of taxi delay, you can also do that here. Okay, now what we do next is we click on the calculate button located right here, and by clicking on the calculate button, then AirTop can start making those calculation runs. So depending on how many, your number of runs, it will take some time that can go from 20 seconds to 2 minutes for 10 runs. So it very much depends on how many simulation runs you want, but that is that number of minutes is it's really short compared to a full simulation run of your entire airport. Okay, so what you get in return is this chart. Okay, as a result, as an outcome of your simulation, what you get is this chart that shows arrivals and departures on one chart, and so that allows you to draw these point clouds. So every one of these colors represents one represents different arrival departure ratios, and the black point in the center of the cloud represents the average of that cloud. So that helps you make this Pareto chart, helps you draw your capacity curve. So that's an important output of the tool. So you can immediately see what's the capacity curve of your airport going to be. And anything under that curve is a throughput that can be sustained. Okay, so in this particular example here, we can see that a throughput of 20 arrivals and 20 departures can be sustained. But if you go beyond and above that that capacity curve, that is throughput that cannot be sustained. That's above the capacity of your airport. So that's very valuable information that you can use to compare your runway system. You don't only get that, you also get, as you can see down here, detailed charts that can show you runway throughput and also delay levels. As I said before, you can tell AirTOP to maintain a maximum delay level. So you can also check here in these charts that those delay levels have been maintained and respected. Okay? Okay, so that's the runway capacity analyzer, a very useful tool, a discrete event simulation tool that can help you get your runway capacity assessments really quickly.